Those papers in line.
Yes. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Board of Education at 5:32 p.m. Roll call.
Ms. Capabianca,
Here.
Mr. Corey,
Here.
Mr. Ucalito,
Here.
Ms. Papiano,
Here.
Ms. Hona, I'm here, Mr. Kisco,
Here.
Mr. Minichia,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Ms. Spino,
Here.
Ms. Toder,
Here.
Ms. Carbone not here, Mr. Aram,
Yeah.
Mr. Barlow. I saw him on. Ms. Ferguson, Ms. Harold,
Here.
Ms. Klimaszewski, sorry,
That's okay. Here.
Ms. Lebomsky,
Here.
Ms. Schulte.
Here.
Okay, done.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Armin. Second, Kisco.
Moved by Armin, second by John. All those in favor?
This one?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No, the agenda.
Prior to starting the meeting, I am going to read a statement that came over as a notification from CABE based on, sorry, let me just clarify for the record. Sorry, I just received a text. Ellen, Mayor Carbone is on the Zoom call.
Great, thank you.
So I am going to read a statement that was sent from CABE in reference to a statement that Commissioner Cardona had made. And the reason I'm going to read this is because I really want to make it abundantly clear as to what decisions are going to be district decisions versus what decisions are going to be state decisions that the Board of Education and central office does not have control over the state decisions. So with that said, the Adapt, Advance, Achieve Connecticut's Plan to Learn and Grow Together document and the directive from Governor Lamont and Commissioner Cardona require that all school districts develop plans for 3 scenarios for the fall of 2020. Number 1, a plan to provide for in-school instruction for all students on a full-time basis unless a family voluntarily opts into temporary remote learning. Number 2, a plan to provide both in-person and remote learning support options, a hybrid model, accessing instruction and curriculum online, resulting in limited student population on school premises at any given time, and a plan for total remote learning to provide a strategy for the potential of future cancellation of school or a certain class requiring all students to access instruction and curriculum online for a period of time. At this time, Connecticut state law requires that access to public school class be offered to students for 180 days and 900 hours, unless the district avails itself of the recent Connecticut State Board of Education waiver for 3 additional planning and training days to hold school for a total of 177 days. Excluding public school students for certain days of the week, for example, having certain grades only attend school on Mondays and Tuesdays with remote learning the other days, is not appropriate under the first model. Any plan submitted to the Connecticut State Department of Education on July 24th, 2020 that does not include a full reopening option as one of the 3 models where all public school students have the opportunity to access school in person 5 days a week will not be in compliance with current state law regarding the number of school days or the expectations of state leadership. Current statutes do not anticipate that remote learning programming counts toward the required number of days in school year. The CSDE expects to issue further guidance on this issue should it become necessary for districts to move to remote learning models in some capacity during the 2020-2021 school year, should public health data require it. As the governor has indicated, careful analysis of public health data will drive the final determination regarding which models schools will implement when reopening for the 2020-2021 school year. We anticipate additional communications on this topic from the Office of the Governor and myself, the Commissioner of Education, related to the most appropriate model to adopt during August. The state will be making the decision as far as which model we will open schools with. To further support school district teams developing plans for the upcoming school year and to provide technical and operational support for those districts wrestling with unique local issues, we have established the CSDE Reopen Schools Support Team, which is described in detail in the accompanying attachments. We will post this and those documents online. And the only reason I'm reading the statement is we've had a lot of inquiries as far as why we are not just rolling out with a hybrid model to start with. And the answer is really that we are not allowed to, unless the state comes down and says option 2 for the reopening is what the rollout will be at the start of school. But if it is 1, we are required to have in school 5 days a week instruction for everyone, except for parents who voluntarily decide to not send their kids, but do a distance learning plan for those kids. Thank you. School community service public participation. The board invites members of the community to speak on topics to be addressed in the agenda or on other topics of interest. Individuals wishing to make comments can dial in or email comments to myself with their name and address, which must be stated at the beginning of their comment. The board will not allow comments regarding specific staff members, parents, students, or personal grievances. I'm going to start with the written comments that were submitted. The first one is from Giovanna Cisco, who is a parent of an elementary school student. As a parent of an elementary child that has an IEP, what is the plan moving forward to achieve IEP goals and meet these children's needs if we do online learning? For example, I had to express my concern because my child was not receiving services during COVID. And then once they heard they were able to provide 30 minutes of Zoom lessons. If I did not say anything, I'm not sure what would have happened. Okay. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank you and the board for all the hard work you do in order to speak on behalf of our very diverse community. I know we are about to hear what our city has planned in regards to the reopening plan, and I'm sure it's been a laborious endeavor, to say the least. I hope that our city chooses to follow the science, data, and the feelings of parents, teachers, and students when they finalize what we should do in the fall. Even though Connecticut has done its best and we are among the exception of how states have responded, that does not mean we are out of the woods, as they say. Many organizations, including those towns who have tried to open summer school, are closing down almost immediately after reopening due to infection. Teachers who are doing what they feel is the best practice already are dying of this virus still. I do understand that many families do not fall under the perimeters of high risk and need services provided by the public school system. And those folks should have the resources they need and or choose as we move forward with a model that will meet the needs of all of our families, including those who do not want to return to a physical school in the fall. One recommendation I would like to share with the board that other parents I've spoken to agree on is that distance learning lesson plans be made available in a weekly basis rather than daily. This is in terms of content or work, with the addition of more live teaching, interactive opportunities, whether they come from a teacher in a class or working from home. This allows parents to structure what we have all experienced as good days, where kids are ready and willing and cranking through the work happily over days that just aren't working for them. Thank you for your time.
Who was that? Yeah.
Jaren Grant. Sorry, I'm just sorting through. Some were answered and didn't want their comments read. So. Okay. My name is Matthew Otis, Torrington resident, parent to 3 children, 2 of which are school age, and a fiance of all-star bus driver. I have kept myself informed with the meetings for our town and was able to be one of the 1,000 people on the SDE call last week, which included the Commissioner of Schools and the Governor of Connecticut. I want to strongly urge the Torrington Public Schools to consider a 2-day district-wide schedule in order to complete all the goals we want for our children, teachers, bus, and facility staff to achieve and to feel safe while actively going to school. The 2-day schedule I am proposing would work as follows. All odd graded classes would go to school on day 1 days, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And all even grades, including kindergarten students, would go on day 2 days, K, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. This will effectively cut the school size down by around 50%, 33%, 66% for the middle school each day. For the middle school, I would suggest having half the 6th and or 8th grade students go on either of the day 1 or 2 days to make it as close to a 50% balance as possible. Using this method creates space within the school buildings because only half of the school classrooms are being used. You can then cut the classroom sizes in half to 10 to 14 students per classroom, as opposed to 20 to 25 students per classroom, and put the other half of the students into an adjoining classroom. This creates more space for better social distancing and an even tighter cohorting group, which is what the SDE has been pushing for. Then you clean all the classrooms after school to prepare them for the alternate day students. With the busing we currently have, 2 to 3 students to a seat with not enough buses or staff to cover a 1-day student per seat rule. With this 2-day schedule, you cut that occupancy in half and you will be able to get that 1 student per seat on each bus each day. You can also have a rule in place for any double seating must be with a sibling. This would prevent buses from having to make multiple runs with a longer route schedule if we use the current means we have at our disposal to facilitate 100% in-school attendance. The smaller school bus occupancy would create shorter bus runs and would in turn create time for the drivers to disinfect their buses between runs, creating a safer environment and smaller cohort groups. On the alternate days, the students staying home can do distance learning or a homework packet. My kids have gotten homework packet over the years and they are given on Monday with an end of the week due date. A distance learning regimen would not disrupt that process, in my opinion, and would actually help focus learning to be more on point. With the electronic distance learning, you could also save the district money on printing supplies for those paper packet assignments. The students could also have a video conference with their teacher in the morning on those off days and then do the assignment or homework from home the rest of that same day. I want the kids to get back to school and have them see their friends and classmates just as much as anyone else. It is important for students to build those social skills and teamwork skills through all the grade levels. But we as a community must do so in the best interest in the health and safety for everyone involved, which is why I want to recommend this 2-day format. It gives all students that physical involvement of teachers and classmates while creating a tighter cohorting group in a safer environment by including our new tools of distance learning. Please consider these recommendations, and I look forward to any conversations that'd like to be had about these topics. Thank you for your time and effort. This is from Veronica Gellermino. My name is Veronica Gellermino, and I live at 372 Clearview Avenue in Harwinton. I currently teach 7th grade World Regional Geography and have taught 8th grade ELA and history at the middle school as well. I may live in a neighboring town, but Torrington's kids are my kids, and the Torrington community is my community. In my role as a teacher in Torrington, I have served on many district committees and building committees. As a representative of our teachers union and a community and countywide service committee, I have also attended almost every single Board of Education meeting over the last 4 or 5 years. Under normal circumstances, you have the awesome challenge of educating Torrington students with a limited and continually shrinking budget. The changing school demographics and needs of our students, the continually updated educational mandates from the State Department of Education, and aging buildings are difficult issues to be sure. But now your decisions affect lives. Make no mistake, no matter which TV news station you listen to, COVID-19 is a killer, can have long-term effects on our quality of life, and is highly contagious. This we know. There are also so many things about this virus that we don't know. I have admired the Board of Education and our district administration for its willingness to ask difficult questions, to thoroughly investigate details, to thoughtfully debate and discuss difficult issues, to consider individual students and families, and its ability to disagree. I want to thank you for that. You all have given so much to my students and our community. It is unfair that the state has asked us to create these plans without even allowing each district to consider partial reopenings or partial days to help keep our students and communities safe and healthy. I do not know how the SDE or the governor's office would respond to school reopening plans that include such options that their guidelines do not. I ask you to consider them, however, and not remove any possible options from your discussions tonight just because our state leaders have restricted them. A good leader sometimes has to make unpopular decisions. Whatever decision the board and our district administration makes, I know that you are being as thoughtful, well-informed, and open as you have been in the past, and I thank you all for that. Veronica Gellermino. Hello, my name is Tiffany Plefka, 90 Eastwood Road, Torrington, Connecticut. I would like to start this off by saying hope all is well. I have 3 children at home, a set of twins going into 4th grade, and a son entering his junior year of high school. My first thought is, why can't this be an open meeting for parents of the community to attend due to COVID, but we can send our children back to school wearing masks all day long? I would love nothing more than to send my children back to school, but I won't force my children to wear a mask all day long. In reality, medical doctors have proven that only N95 masks protect what goes in and what comes out. So wearing cloth masks is completely useless. You are taking away their social interaction with fellow students by canceling the lunchroom and recess. What other subjects or extracurricular activities will no longer exist as well? Every parent, including myself, is on the fence either way you look at it, along with their own opinion about this whole COVID-19 dilemma. Distance learning was a failure in my opinion. Parents were left with no choice but to remain at home and do the work hand in hand with their child. Teachers should have been Zooming with their students as they were still being paid. It should have been reduced in time frame, but the teachers should have Zoomed their class as they would in a normal class. So many factors are at stake when it comes to staying home or coming back. I also didn't mean you personally when I wrote this. It's just frustrating to be the parent in this situation. Thank you. So people are emailing saying, don't read mine because the question's already been answered. So I'm just making sure that This is from Meg Dubois. As the parent of an incoming 9th grader at Torrington High School, I am eager for my child to start school with his peers and to be a part of the Torrington High School community. As the spouse of a teacher employed by Torrington High School, I also know how important it is to our dedicated teachers to be back in the classroom and fully engaging with students in person. Unfortunately, after reviewing the draft Torrington Public Schools Reopening Plan 2020, I still have serious concerns about the health and safety of all students and school staff. Full capacity versus hybrid model. Since the pandemic forced school closings across the state and country in March, large gatherings of people in enclosed spaces for extended periods of time have been strongly discouraged and in many cases not allowed. A full return to school now is literally making our students, school staff, and bus drivers an experiment. Given the seriousness of the health risks and the lengthy list of modified school procedure that this situation requires, it makes sense to start the school year with a hybrid model. It does not make sense to face the serious risk that is laden with logistical challenges with every single facet of a school day operating at full capacity. It makes sense to start with a more cautious, safe approach and then expand to full operating capacity once protocols have been fine-tuned in each building. Students and staff have grown accustomed to the myriad new routines and the data supports moving to expanded capacity. A new study shows older children aged 10 to 19 are just as likely to transmit the disease as adults. That means sending preteens and teens back to middle and high school could pose a major public health risk. Additionally, high school students and staff cannot realistically form cohorts. This only highlights the importance of social physical distancing at the high school. Under the draft plan to start school at full capacity, it is unclear how social distancing in the classroom will happen. It's hard to imagine a scenario in which schools can maintain appropriate social distance given how crowded typical classrooms are regularly. The state of Connecticut plan recommends students be spaced 6 feet apart when feasible. Unless Torrington schools can reduce class sizes to meet the recommended 6-foot spacing between students, students should not be attending school at full capacity. Page 24. If 6 feet of distance in the minimum standard requirement, how many classrooms will be able to meet this standard? Will parents be made aware of their children are in spaces that do not meet these minimum standards? Starting the 2020-2021 school year with the hybrid model, which allows for fewer students in school in person, seems more reasonable for ensuring the health and safety of all students and staff. It is still unclear the degree to which the virus can spread through aerosol transmission. Dr. Fauci and the WHO have recently acknowledged that aerosol transmission is a concern. specifically in confined spaces with poor ventilation for sustained blocks of time, like a school building. Mask requirements. On page 22 of the draft Torrington Public Schools Reopening Plan 2020, under requirements and non-negotiables, it states, adopt policies requiring use of face coverings for all students and staff when they are inside the school building, with certain exceptions listed below. For anyone who has trouble breathing or anyone who is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to move the mask without assistance, face coverings and masks should not be required per CDC guidance. For anyone who has a medical reason making it unsafe to wear a face covering, masks would not be required. How will the school ensure students adhere to the mask wearing policy? Who will enforce this rule, and what will the consequences be for students who refuse to comply with this rule? Understandably, if an emergency occurs, a student might need to remove their mask or have it removed by someone else. The language on page 22 of the draft plan is unclear if a student who is just uncomfortable wearing a mask and complains that they are having trouble breathing will qualify as someone who is exempt from wearing a mask in school. If so, this endangers other students and staff. How will this be addressed? When will mask breaks occur, and how will staff and students be protected during these times? What qualifies as a medical reason to be exempt from wearing a mask? Question mark. Will students be required to submit a doctor's note stating the reason? How will you protect the medically exempt students as well as other student staff and bus drivers who must be in a confined space with medically exempt students? Food services. Indoor dining is considered a high-risk activity by the CDC currently. In Connecticut, restaurants are still at 50% capacity for indoor dining. Why should the school year start at full student capacity instead of at half capacity under the hybrid model to protect students and staff when they must engage in higher risk activities such as indoor eating? Who will monitor students during lunch to ensure proper physical distancing? Classroom cleaning. While the risk of contracting COVID-19 through contaminated surfaces is considered low, it is still possible to become infected by high-touch surfaces such as desks and chairs. The state of Connecticut's guidance for the cleaning and disinfection of schools during the COVID-19 pandemic does not adequately address the cleaning of desks, chairs, and other high-touch surfaces. Who will be doing the extra cleaning during the school day in the classrooms? Will this be assigned to the teachers or custodial staff? If teachers or custodial staff are cleaning multiple desks and chairs between each period, their chances of encountering contaminated surfaces are drastically increased. The chance of a student sitting down at a desk that has not been properly disinfected between classes is also of great concern. The guidance makes a reference to letting the high-touch surfaces air dry. How long will students need to wait in between classes before they enter the classroom and sit down at their disinfected desk? Are they waiting in the hallway, in the classrooms? How do they stay socially distanced at this time? If desks and chairs will not be disinfected between each class period, how can you ensure student safety at this time? Bathrooms. Public restrooms are considered high-risk areas. Wearing masks and social distancing is critical when using a public restroom to mitigate your risk. Who will monitor students using public bathrooms to ensure that they are wearing masks, washing hands, and staying as socially distant as possible? Page 26 of the plan. Excessive heat. Understandably, fans will not be used in the classrooms to prevent the spread of COVID-19, droplets in the air. My sincere hope is that school will follow its plan for early dismissal and/or cancel schools when classroom temperatures are too hot for learning and mask wearing. Classrooms in THS regularly reach excessive heat in August, September, May, and June, even with the use of fans and open windows. During those months with a fan, the temperature inside my husband's classroom regularly reaches over 85 degrees, even when the outside temperature is lower, which is not conducive to teaching or an ideal learning environment. High-risk staff. What are the protocols to protect high-risk staff members? Page 23. Will all staff members be made aware of the plan for high-risk staff members before being required to enter the school building in August? Will staff members be given a chance to share their concerns before returning? Will staff be required to use their sick time if there is an outbreak of COVID-19 at the school and they feel unsafe to return? While Connecticut is doing well overall with our COVID-19 containment right now, we have not yet allowed large groups of people to gather indoors. Opening schools at full capacity to start the school year is an experiment. Our students and staff will be testing the safety of this decision. School staff members are now being asked to be on the front lines of this pandemic. They should be treated with respect for their valid concerns about working indoors at full capacity with so many unanswered questions and facing such uncertainty every single day. I urge you to consider starting the school year with a hybrid model, given the serious health risks and a long list of logistical challenges our schools face. Thank you for consideration of these concerns and for keeping the public informed of your decision-making process every step of the way through this ongoing public health crisis. Next one is from Tara and Scott Minerly, 394 New Harwinson Road. First, my husband Scott and I want you to know how much we appreciate all of the hard work you have done and continue to do to provide the safest learning environment for our students and staff. As teachers, we want to be back in the classroom more than anything, and we also want our child to be in the classroom. But safety for all is our highest priority. To accomplish this, we support the recent CEA's recommendation to reduce density and allow staggered schedules, along with the recommendation to institute testing for all students, teachers, and staff once per week and institute contact tracing protocols. In addition, we are concerned about the safety of staff members having to move around to different classrooms, art, music, technology, physical education, teachers, and others. Furthermore, the plan includes the following statement: establish protections for high-risk staff members. But those protections are unclear. Will teacher and staff with underlying medical condition have the option to stay home, and would they still be able to teach? The plan also states that the Director of Human Resources has developed a procedure for sick leave policies. We did not see the procedures on the Human Resources page, so including them in the plan would be helpful. Thank you for listening to our questions and concerns. Okay. That's all the email statements asked to be read. Is there anyone on the telephone that would like to make a comment or address the board?
Yes, I would.
Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
I would as well.
If you can
Hi,
state your name.
my name is Jen Miriam. I have two students that attend the schools in Torrington. Let me just get my notes all together here.
Can I just ask you to repeat your
All right.
name? Because we have to put it in the record and it wasn't clear.
As a teacher and mother, as a teacher in another district and mother of two attending Torrington schools, I have many concerns about students and staff returning to school. Some of them being, one, wearing the mask all day long. Number one, who's going to do the mask breaks? When will they occur? And during this time, all the work that has been taken place by having the masks on all day is for nothing. You're just spreading the germs around at that point. Two, The social emotional impact of returning to school for the students, they will not be able to play with, hug, or communicate as they typically would with their peers. This is like talking about giving a carrot to the student and pulling it back. That is going to be almost impossible for teachers to control and have the students adhere to that law. Special education, this is a huge one. On accommodation, proximity to control, reteaching, nonverbal cues, not to mention seclusion, restraints, and other behavioral concerns that have bodily fluids involved. All of those will not be able to take place if we go back full-time with this model. Air quality, recirculation, is it recirculation of fresh air, or is it just the air going on and back and recirculating? There's no fans allowed. So how can people keep school without fans? Cleaning and replacing the vents, if you do have air conditioning, that's costly. Who's going to do that? The custodial staff, cost of keeping schools clean, overtime. Are we going to hire people? Is that going to cost more? 6, substitute teachers. How can we control that? Who's going to want to go into a building where there could possibly be exposed to COVID? Can we guarantee that they're not spreaders? Family members. This is another one. Family members that are at high risk. We're putting our kids at risk and our family members at risk. So that's going to cause families to isolate, especially during the holidays. We have Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, whatever you celebrate. You're not going to be able to do that because you're going to need to be in isolation. 8, the costs. We have cleaning, buses, duty coverage. From my understanding, students won't be able to have lunch in cafeteria. You're going to might have to hire a COVID planner. Number 9, how will you keep the district? How will you have extra rooms for the kids? If students are going to go back, classes will be able to fit approximately 10 students. Where are we going to put the other students and have them have the same curriculum? Fire drills, lockdowns, and other emergency protocols. How can these take place? I have many other concerns, and I would like to see specific guidelines for opening the schools, possibly, which I would love, even a walkthrough. We can walk in our students' shoes so that we can see exactly what they're going to happen. And I'd like to thank you for all the hard work that you had creating this plan. I realize that the city of Torrington needs to comply with the state standards in order to receive funding. And the job you guys have is a difficult one, and it's daunting, and I appreciate all the work that you guys have put into it, but I would really like maybe some pushbacks to the state with all of these concerns that all the members of Torrington and the school and teachers have put forth. Thank you for your time.
Can you just give me your first name and last name for the record?
My name is Jen Merriam, and I'm at 579 Wimbledon Gate.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. There was someone else that wanted to speak. Do you still wish to speak?
Yes, I would.
Great. Could you just state your name for the record before your comment and address? Great.
Yes. Okay. My name is Tracy Morales Gabelin, and I live at 60 University Drive in Torrington. My main concerns with sending my children back to school there are many, too many to list, and many that have already been discussed. One thing I want to point out in particular is that we're expecting our children to return to school and wear a mask each day for the entire day, when as I've been watching this school board meeting, 3 of you have either lifted your mask to talk to another person, and the main person speaking has not worn her mask the entire time. As we know, the spread of COVID is spread through droplets in the air. Now, not wearing a mask does not, even wearing a mask doesn't protect the person from another person who isn't wearing a mask, because those droplets can go into their eyes and can lead to them contracting the virus. If we can't expect our school board members to wear a mask, how can we expect our children to wear a mask all day long? My other concern is that I think that teachers did the best possible job that they could when schools shut down in the spring. However, for the social and emotional health of our students, I think that our children need to have the opportunity to interact via distance learning using Zoom as we are right now, so they can see their peers and classmates on a Zoom schedule. I realize this isn't realistic for younger children, but for older children in middle and high school, they should be responsible enough to be able to log into their class throughout the day on a live streaming basis and participate and be able to interact with their teachers. It was very difficult for children to interact with their teachers in the spring. Teachers didn't get back in a timely manner, and I understand that everybody was learning, and it was a big learning curve, but now we're all learning to use Zoom and to go on Zoom classes. Children are a lot more technologically savvy than adults are in most cases, so I feel like for at least the middle and high schoolers, they should be given that opportunity to interact via live classrooms, and that also puts a little more responsibility on the children. I do appreciate everything that everyone has been doing, and I understand that you're all in a very difficult situation. And I just hope that everyone is given the opportunity to interact virtually or in person if that's what they choose, but that our teachers and our children are kept safe. Thank you so much for all the hard work you put in, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the public line that wishes to make a comment, address the board?
I would, Fiona.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Lafreniere.
Jason Lafreniere, special ed teacher at Torrington Middle School. First and foremost, thank you to everyone that worked so hard on the reopening plan. There's a lot of information, it seems, that every precaution is planned for. Many still argue that without a vaccine, we should continue with remote learning. Regardless, we are given a charge, and we must follow that charge as well as being in compliance with state law. With all the comments that are being made this evening, as we stated at the beginning of this comment section, the Board of Ed has their hands tied in what plan they put forth. Many of these comments should be directed at our state legislators, at our Commissioner of Education, and to our governor. They are the ones who are making this happen, not the Board of Ed. Families have the option to send their children to school or not, and I'm happy to read that families are encouraged to make a decision about their child's placement for a home working period. During this evening's presentation, I hope the following questions are addressed. Number one, will the same teachers, whether regular ed or special ed, be facilitating both in-person and remote learning, or will there be teachers dedicated to just remote learning? That detail is not in the plan. If teachers are required to facilitate both, how will this affect contracts? Is there any word on the teacher evaluations, and what would that entail, or what would the focus be for the evaluation? When will decisions on students who will be AA or BB based if we go to a hybrid model be, and when will and how will that be communicated? Please clarify where the $2.7 million for the COVID expenses is coming from. In the plan, it shows the 53 bus monitors, the 14 new custodians, and all the other expenses that are coming from. Is this from the CARES Act? Because I know the Board of Ed did not find the money through. I also would just like to say that congratulations on probably your most attended meeting. It looks like online we took 180 viewers. Again, thank you for all your hard work, and I look forward to helping the district do what it can to facilitate a rigorous and meaningful education this fall.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the public line that would like to make a comment or address the board? Okay, public comment is closed. Okay. Discussion, school reopening.
Thank you very much. We do have a slide presentation. We'll be bringing that up so that everybody can see that. But before we get started, I just want to reiterate what the board chair said at the very beginning so that people truly understand. We are public school. We are an educational entity. We must follow what the governor and what the commissioner are saying. We understand that there are a lot of different politics and a lot of different positions and opinions and all of that. And we're very respectful of that, but we as a school district need to move forward. And as Ms. Capabianca said at the very beginning, in our plan, the commissioner is requiring that we have 3 phases to our plan. And I'll go over those in detail so that people have a better understanding. We don't have a choice on the 3 options. We need to present the plan with the 3 options. So that's what we are doing this Friday. We do appreciate everybody's input as we go through this process. We have been sharing our parents, our communities, our district perspective, our board's perspective. Laura Klemaszewski, our Director of Student Services, Sue Ferguson, our Assistant Superintendent, have sat in on the various task forces throughout the last few months. I've sat in on a variety of different superintendent meetings. We are sharing this information, and this is where we are at this point. So we will continue to share information with you as it comes available from the governor and the commissioner as we move forward. At this point, we are presenting a 3-phase plan. So that being said, on June 29th, Adapt, Advance, Achieve, the Connecticut's Plan to Learn and Grow Together was released. You can go to the next one, Ellie, thank you. And that really set forth the guidelines that we are working from today. So July 24th, that's this Friday when the plans are actually due. And the 3 phases are the minimal phase, the moderate, and the high spread. There is no such thing at this point in time, unfortunately, because we don't have a vaccine, as going back as normal. We all know life is not business as usual, what we're used to, right? So within the plan, there were elements or subtopics and priorities set forth by the governor and the commissioner. And those are health and safety priority number 1. The educational model, we want to make sure that we are clarifying the instruction and that we are focusing in on the social emotional needs of our students, our families, and our staff. Transportation issues so that people really understand what their options are. Food service, that's very important. We want to make sure it's okay. I can move to the side. Food service, we want to make sure that our students are fed. We are now moving to a district-wide food service program. Everyone qualifies for free food service. So we want to make sure that we are supplying that and providing that regardless. And I'll talk about the different scenarios in terms of the education piece. Monitoring of transmission, because we do want to keep everybody healthy and safe, and the communication measures that we are utilizing as we move forward. Thanks, Ellie. Next one. So the 3 models, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So in phase 1, that's in-person learning in the classroom. That is what is being required of us. All students every day, 5 days a week for full days of learning. However, we understand that some of our families do not feel comfortable with that model. So some of our families may choose to opt out of that. So what we are providing is a distance learning model, but not like what we did during the March through the June. What we're doing moving forward is to make sure that it is a virtual in-person and it is mimicking or following what we would do in a normal school day. So even if students are staying home and they are doing distance learning, they are doing it on a regular day schedule. So high school students, if your class first period starts at 7:20, that's when you're receiving your instruction, even if you are at home. If you are in person, obviously you're at school, you've gotten to school, you are having your first period class, and so on throughout the regular school day. We will follow the same schedule that we did last year. And attendance will be taken in those classes, and students will have to show up, whether it's in person or distance learning, and it's happening virtually. So those pieces are really important. So we have in school and we have the remote learning parallel track. So that's all phase one. Phase two is where we really get into that 50% of our students are coming on any given day. So that we are following with an AA, and then Wednesday being our distance learning for all students, and then a BB schedule. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when we get into the educational models and what that will look like and how those students, how we break down those students. So we have 50% within the school at any given time. Phase three is at that point, we have high spread. We've been talking with the Department of Public Health, locally, statewide. At that point, the governor may be shutting down the state again. So we're really looking at regional health issues and state health issues at that point to really determine if we are saying, okay, we're going to distance learning all across the board, all of our schools moving forward until further notice. So that's phase three. Next slide, please. So what safety measures are we putting in place? A lot of questions about safety measures. So we are ensuring social distancing. We are ensuring social distancing within the classrooms. The class seating and the 6 feet apart, that's a guideline. It's when feasible. And so it's really based on the square footage of the classroom. It will not always be 6 feet in terms of distancing. That's a range. Our classrooms range in size. So we are adjusting those classrooms based on the square footage and the number of seats based on the square footage in the classroom. So the PPE, the masks are required. They are required by our students, and students and staff can both have face shields as well. We can have clear masks for those students who need clear masks. This might include students who have a hearing impairment, or if they are with a teacher who is teaching and has a hearing impairment. So clear masks will be important. For our English as a second language students, that will also be important. So right in this region, right around the mouth, that's where we would have the clear masks. Face shields also. So if students are also opting for face shields, they have to wear the mask and the face shields. Teachers, when they are teaching, as long as they are at a distance, they can wear the face shields and not have to wear the mask. However, we also have for teachers plexiglass. So we have a trifold plexiglass that can be used on their desks or on their teaching station. A lot of times if teachers are doing a lab, they have a separate desk, so they would need that plexiglass around them. In addition, people in the office have the plexiglass as well. They will also be wearing masks. They were also, if they would like, can wear the face shields. For our nurses, we have gloves, we have gowns. These are all high-grade surgical gloves and gowns, and they will have the professional masks as well that are fit for a medical situation. Cohorting. So what does cohorting mean? We've talked a lot about cohorting. We may have heard that term. Those are small groups of students that stay throughout the day. So at the elementary, the cohorting will happen in each classroom. And there will also be cohorting in the hallway, cohorting even for bathrooms. So those are in certain regions. In grades 6 through 8, we're doing that as well. We're able to continue to do the cohorting. And then obviously in grades 9 through 12, it does become more difficult because students are changing classes. So we are monitoring that piece in terms of, as much as possible, we will try to cohort our students even at grades 9 through 12. The cleaning and disinfecting, and we will keep adding to our plan. This is a living document. So we will keep adding our cleaning and disinfecting procedures. We are following CDC guidelines. John Barlow has been in contact almost on a daily basis with the Department of Public Health to ensure that we are following the necessary protocols and procedures. Those get updated routinely. Originally we thought we could do use those foggers for disinfectants. We cannot, so we don't do those. Originally, we had the air blowers for the dryers in the bathrooms. We took those out and we are using towel dispensers. Just to give you an example, there will be thorough cleaning throughout the day. We do need to hire sanitizers or extra custodians, and we're still working out who that will be and what that job description is, but they will be cleaning all day long. In particular, we have the cohorting at the K-8 level, but we need even more staff at the high school level. So we are putting those positions in place and making sure that we have the disinfecting. Limiting visitors inside the building, making sure that everybody is safe. We are not having visitors. We are not having volunteers. If parents need to pick up students, they will do so outside of the building. And even for our youngest learners, we will have a staff member who's walking the student to where the parent is outside of the building. Obviously checking identifications as well. Any vendors will have to log in, and we will document that, and they will have to have the proper PPE as well. Sharing of materials. We have to limit that so students will have many more individual items in terms of art supplies, or at the elementary level, their own pencils or pens or crayons, glue sticks, those kinds of things that they keep in their desk consistently. We will not be using lockers. Everything will be in the backpack. So we're asking folks to really limit what their supplies are and what students are bringing. We will have one-on-one devices, so that should help with that piece. We are not going to be using our playgrounds. We really want to concentrate on the disinfecting and the cleaning inside the building. So playgrounds will still be off limits during this time. Bathroom usage, bathrooms will be cleaned twice a day and disinfected, and that will be the job of our new hires who are going around and cleaning and sanitizing. Nurses, as I said before, will have surgical PPE, or professional personal protective equipment. They will also be monitoring our isolation rooms and if you look at our containment plan, we have to have a designated area for those students or staff who we feel are showing symptoms of COVID or are not feeling well. We have a specific area for them. We do have more nurses in our funding plan because at 2 of our schools, we only have 1 nurse. And we really feel like at this point, we need 2 nurses or 2 LPNs. Once again, those positions to be clarified as we move forward, but we know we need more staffing there. Next slide. So this gives you an idea of a sample classroom layout and the spread. This is a real classroom. This happens to be at the middle school. And so the desk spacing, it also looks pretty stark because everything has been taken out of the classroom. People may have had personal items, or they had extra materials, supplies, things like that. And we are containing those in areas so that we can maximize the space in each classroom. So this is really essential as we move forward. Next slide. Okay, so the educational model, when we are really looking at this, I talked about phase 1, where we're talking about a daily structured in-person or remote learning parallel track. The square footage of the room determines the number of students. The classroom cohorts, that will really be for pre-K through 5, and then 6 through 8 established to the greatest extent possible. Really, they're working on the schedule right now, and it's looking, they've got that pretty tight. And then grades 9 through 12 cohorts when feasible. I talked about the classrooms being cleaned up. Students will be able to participate in specials, unified arts, and electives. But as I said before, we have to ensure that they have the tools and the materials so that they can participate and they can still work on an individual basis so that they are not touching or sharing other people's materials. So in phase 2, the moderate spread, that's the 50% spread, okay? That's the hybrid model that a lot of people have been talking about. So I don't want people to get confused between phase 1 and phase 2. So that's a rotating day schedule. And so what we are doing is we have a Monday and a Tuesday in cohort 1. It's an AA, if you will, or cohort 1, however you want to say it. One group would come Monday and Tuesday, and then they would be doing distance learning Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then cohort 2 would be doing in-person, or if they choose the remote, on Thursday, Friday. And then the distance learning would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's 2 days on, 3 days off for the 50% model. And that is when we start to see a resurgence of cases, when we start to see that, you know, maybe a student or a staff member is testing positive. We have confirmation of cases, and that's when we start to move into that 50%. All of this is dependent on our communication with local Department of Public Health, State Department of Public Health, and speaking with the State Department of Education. And that's how our decisions will be made. Just reminding everybody that this is a health crisis. This is not, it becomes an educational crisis secondarily. So we have to let the health experts really guide us in these different phases. And then phase 3, 100% of the students will participate in distance learning. And then it's important that throughout this whole process, all of the phases, that we are doing continuous learning for all staff as well as our students. So special education, English language learners, and then intervention. So this will look different in terms of our PPT meetings, not so different from what we were doing in the spring. We will continue to have virtual PPT meetings. We want to make sure that everybody stays safe. We've kind of gotten used to that model. Services will be provided in cohort classrooms when possible. Cleaning in between small group instruction. If the special education teacher, the paras, the EL, the English language learner teachers, and the intervention teachers have worked with students in very, very small groups with the social distancing, cleaning will occur in between each group. Individualized plans, which are developed for students, we will continue to honor IEPs, continue to have those individualized plans for our English language learners and for our intervention students. And as I said before, the clear mass used by teachers and students as appropriate. So teachers, case managers, and staff to maintain regular contact with families, that's really essential. We want to make sure throughout this whole process, regardless of what phase we are at, that we are continuing that communication, and parents can feel free to ask their questions, give a call, send an email, so that we can keep everybody informed as we go on from there. And I already talked about the continuous professional development. Okay, and social emotional. During the spring, we were able to offer social emotional supports to our students. We will absolutely positively continue that. This year, as we start the year, we are very fortunate. Sue Ferguson has worked really hard with our local RESC to ensure that we have readiness to learn units, which integrate our social emotional as well as the academic pieces to address the gaps as we are starting the school year. And that's really key. We want to make sure that we continue to have supports for staff Kim Schulte's done a really great job making sure that we get information out in terms of the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP. We will continue to build that, grow that, and she will continue to share more information on those services that are available, because we want our staff to be supported during this difficult time as well. Utilizing school staff. School staff has been phenomenal, really making sure that our families are supported during this difficult time. Social workers, guidance counselors, school psychologists, our admins have been there for our families as well. So a shout out to all those folks. We are very fortunate in Torrington. We have Charlotte Hungerford Hospital, Community Health and Wellness, and McCall's, who really, as we went through the year, and in particular during the spring, and they've been willing to support our families during the summer as well. So a lot of support has been given. We will continue to do that. We understand that these are difficult times for our students, for our families, and our staff. So transportation. So masks will be worn at all times by the driver, by the bus monitors, and the students. If students have forgotten their masks or don't have a mask as they are getting on the bus monitor will give them a mask so that everyone is adhering to that. Students will be sitting in two students per seat on the bus. In phase one, parents are strongly encouraged to transport their children. We have been working with Torrington Police Department to ensure that we will still have a good traffic flow. We have a lot of parents who are dropping off their students in the mornings as we are starting, or for the pickups as well. If students are riding buses this year, there is a change. Families are limited to one bus per student for pickup and drop off. In our survey, we asked a variety of different scenarios for parents. So if parents need to drop off, but then they need that bus to take their child home, that's fine. Or vice versa, in the morning you need the bus, but parents gonna pick up in the afternoon, then that's workable as well. We are asking that in the survey to know if parents are going to transport or if students are riding the bus. In phase one, 2 students per seat. In phase two, it's 50% of our students who are allowed on the buses, and it will follow that A-B schedule in terms of those cohort groups. And then in phase three, obviously no transportation is needed because everybody would be on the distance learning implementation plan. We have talked with All-Star. They have a massive reopening for themselves as well. Buses will be cleaned and disinfected after every run. So they will be cleaning all day long as well. So we appreciate them being our partner in this process. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Sorry. No, you're good. Okay, so in terms of food service, thank you, Allie. All students will be provided breakfast and lunch every day. So I really want people to understand that even if you are choosing to have your children stay home, we will be feeding students breakfast and lunch, even if they are on the remote, if you choose remote learning. The pickup locations and the times will be clearly delineated, and we will get that information out to families. We're still working out some of the kinks on that, but we know that we will be able to provide breakfast and lunch to our families for those, in those situations. Meals will be grab and go, be very similar to what we did March to June. We will not be serving hot meals during this time period. There's no way to do it and keep everybody safe and healthy and keep things clean and efficient. So students in grades K through 5, they will be eating in their classrooms. Students in grades 6 through 12 will be eating in designated areas with social distancing. We will be setting up plexiglass table dividers for those situations. to ensure that those students will be safe during that time, and social distancing, seating will be marked, and students will be supervised so that they stay in their designated areas. So monitoring of the transmission, our nurses have already met with Dr. Curry, who's our medical advisor as well, and will continue to do so. And as I said, John Barlow's been talking with Department of Public Health. I've been talking with Department of Public Health almost every day as well. So I'm sure they're getting sick of us by now, but these are all very important questions to have answered. So nurses at each site will continue to monitor student and staff illnesses, temperatures of 100 or more, and symptoms related to COVID. If there's any symptoms, then we are going to obviously have our nurses contact the parents and say, this would be a good time to have you tested, go to your general practitioner, check in, have a call, either telehealth or go visit, and really let's figure out what's going on. Same thing for our staff, because we really are going to want to chart any positive cases of anybody who's in our buildings. There will be 2 nurses at every school. We did speak about that. Nurses will have the appropriate medical PPE. And then nurses will continue to provide staff, students, and families with information, and they will be a huge part of our communication on what the COVID updates are, and also providing videos on the health measures that we should be taking and things that parents can go do at home, and then keeping us abreast of what should be happening at the schools as well. So communications are, it's going to be key. We want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date communication. We have a compliance liaison. So Sue Ferguson has not only been my partner in leadership as the assistant superintendent, she is also our compliance liaison. So we will work in concert so that we can address these issues as we move forward in this pandemic situation. So she will be the contact, I will be the contact. Sometimes it will be Sue, sometimes it will be me, any other Sue, right? So we try to keep it simple for everybody in terms of information. And we are setting up an email where people can go directly to write their questions on that email. It will be on our website. In fact, I do believe that it's on this evening under our heading where it states reopening 2020. So you will see that email, you can access that email, you can continue to ask questions. Under that heading, we will also have frequently asked questions, or FAQs, that will be posted so that hopefully we can answer people's questions so that you're not feeling like, oh, I'm the only one, I don't really know the answer to this. And then it will also keep us informed in terms of what people's concerns are, what our parents, our community members' concerns are as we move forward, our staff members. That will definitely help. We will be doing orientation videos for each school so that we can inform parents about the use of PPE and the variety of different supplies that we have. What's happening in terms of classrooms, daily routines, health measures. And so I think that will help to also clarify some of what's happening at the schools on a daily basis. And this will be a part of those extra 3 days. That's why we are starting so late, so that we have an opportunity to have more of a structured time with families so that they can watch these videos, they can ask their questions. Staff has time to watch and ask and interact, which I think will be helpful. Want to go to the next one? Funding. So I've really talked about a lot of these funding pieces. These are our estimated additional expenses. The governor had asked us to put this in our plan. So it is at the end of our plan and it is clarified there. At one point, the governor for a couple of times in a row as he was doing press conferences. He was saying that this was very important because he was looking at this information to guide his own budget as he was setting this. So I do think that he is aware of what the cost factors are. I think the same is true for our commissioner, so that he really understands what the needs are of our school districts throughout the state. So how do they break down? We're really looking at staff, bus monitors, custodians, nurses, teachers, and techs, because we want to make sure that, I mean, I think I've talked about everybody, bus monitors, custodians, nurses. Obviously, we have more of a need for teachers because we have now broken down the classrooms further, so we need more teachers to teach those classes. And then technicians to ensure that as we are moving to this distance learning and possibly doing it 100% of the time, we really want to make sure that our techs are available to answer our staff's questions, as well as our families' questions. So that's very important as well. Obviously, PPE and our supplies, masks, gowns, gloves, hand sanitizer, table dividers. I just kind of highlighted some of them, but you can see that whole breakdown. This is a huge part of that budget. Technology, software, and devices. And I really do want to thank the board and thank Board of Finance, thank the mayor for allowing us to buy more one-on-one devices during the spring to ready us for this year. We also paid for some of those one-on-one devices, which we're moving toward next year, in terms of Dalio Foundation, which was basically a donation of laptops. And then also our Alliance grant also paid for that. Social emotional learning resources so that we can ensure that our students really are having those supports and we're able to integrate social emotional coping strategies, and really talking about some of those pieces as we're integrating them into our curriculum, particularly in that initial time when students are transitioning back, because this has been a difficult time. Transportation, any extra special ed needs or busing that we may have, we put aside another portion of the funding because we really feel like that is essential in terms of supporting our special education students. Next. So the first day of school will be September 8th, okay? And the professional development days for staff, preparation for the needs of the 2021 school year, all of that will really be helpful to have those extra days for staff. This is monumental, as many people mentioned, even on the phone call. And then the governor's change in the days of required school for students, going from 180 to 177. That is also very helpful because we will be able to use those 3 days to really inform our families, inform our staff, and keep them abreast of what we are doing next year. But even more importantly, as things change, I mean, what we have heard as superintendents, and I'm sure you've heard it even in the press conferences, the key is to be flexible and fluid. So we don't know what the governor is going to say in the middle of August. So he may adjust and adapt more of what we know right now and what we put in this plan. So we are going to continue to be flexible and fluid as we hear what's coming down from the state or what's coming down from the Department of Education. And then we go from there. We want to make sure that we are providing staff, students, families, and staff those orientation videos so that we really have an opportunity to be prepared for establishing new routines and really understanding what the flow is for implementation of the reopening plan. Sorry, we have some noise going on next door, so hopefully people can still hear us. I think we're set. I hope that I've answered some of your questions. As I said, I think it's really going to be helpful to have that email and those frequently asked questions online, because people will continue to have questions and then we can answer them within a 24-hour period. Surveys will go out tomorrow morning to staff and to parents. And the biggest questions for our parents in terms of in-person learning or the remote learning, because we will be in phase 1 and we will be required to have our students wearing the masks. So I think hopefully you have a better understanding of what the requirements are and what we need to do in terms of the implementation of phase 1, and you can make those decisions. Same thing for the busing. I've outlined what is required there. Those are the 2 big questions that you'll see on the survey, and we will need those back by August 1st because we do need to be able to move forward. Once we can finalize that information, it will make it easier so that we can move forward with class placements and schedules. So we are asking for parents to put students' names on the survey. Otherwise, we can't determine what your needs are. So we're not trying to pry, we're just trying to ensure that we get your child appropriately placed and we are delivering exactly what you are asking in terms of whether it's remote or it's in-person instruction. And for staff surveys, it will be very similar to the last survey in terms of in-person and then in terms of accommodations necessary. And then we will be setting up a link which will go to HR if there are any specific needs. And then I know Kim Schulte will be responding to those needs and that situation. So, and same thing with staff. We will need that survey completed by August 1st so that we have that information and we can really move forward.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open the floor for questions from the board. Jess and then Gary.
I have 2. I'll ask one and then Gary can have his turn. One is in relation to the food service. How will the people that are doing distance learning get their lunches on time if the students are expected to follow a class schedule?
Yep, we're working on it. We already realized that glitch because they have to work on a schedule. So we're working with Ed Advance. It's going to be tricky, but it's going to take more time. We really wish there were an easy answer for that because we can't follow what we did during the March to June.
Right.
So yes, absolutely. But we really feel it's imperative for students who are on the distance to keep that structure because that's part of just keeping a healthy, stable environment. Kids thrive in routine and structure, and so we want to make sure that we can follow that.
Gary.
Sure.
Okay. Just for clarification, I know the governor has given us these guidelines and we're following them because we have to. I've been told there's still a possibility if things continue to improve that masks may go away. I think this is what we hope is the worst case unless there's a spike. And then maybe there's going to be more guidance down the road as things change. Have you heard that or no?
So what we are presenting you tonight is, given the requirements that we have,
Correct.
and given the restrictions, this is the plan that we are presenting. So the governor may say everything is wonderful, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. But until he says that, I am obligated as a superintendent of our schools
Correct.
to present this plan in this way to comply with what they have requested of us, because they will not accept a plan that does not have all of these elements.
And if we presented a plan that they didn't accept, the response would be, or the result would be what?
The students would not have their days count, and so it would be detrimental to our students.
There's another one.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let's get Nikki and then back to Jess and then you. Go ahead.
Keep doing this rotation.
Yeah, so let's try to keep it to one question, everybody, and then we'll keep going around.
A lot of the additional expenses that were submitted to the state on Friday
Sure.
are what we need to open and meet all of our safety measures. So have we started buying these, interviewing teachers, nurses, custodians, or are we waiting for the okay from the state? And do we have any insight into when that would happen?
Some of it we are purchasing at this time because we absolutely positively need to. And some of the staffing, yes, we have to post for it. Otherwise, we will not get staff. That is just the reality of the situation. It's difficult enough competing with the whole entire state and actually, in all honesty, the whole entire nation, because everybody is having to do this. So there is a shortage. And so we are looking into those pieces, but we really are trying to measure it. So it's not like we're saying, woo, okay, we're just going to go and do this. We're really being measured and thoughtful about how we're moving forward. For things we absolutely positively know we need, we're going to need those clear masks. We're going to need masks. We're going to need face shields. We need that plexiglass. And it will benefit us regardless of whatever model we end up going with, because it will ensure the safety as we are still waiting for a vaccine. So we have to be responsible.
But we're not buying for the whole year.
Yeah.
So we're buying 60 days at a time.
How much of the 2.7 million have we already spent?
Probably 150,000.
And that's enough to get us started.
Well, there's a
for-
couple more things that we have to buy.
To get us started for
Yeah.
the first of school to
Correct.
feel like we have adequate masks.
Correct. And remember that we are very fortunate in that we have CARES Act money. And so that will help offset. CARES Act money also paid for the one-on-one devices. So those pieces are really helping us move forward. Not every district has Title I funds and not every district is getting that money. So even though it's only 660,000, I'm very appreciative that we are able to get 660,000. It's more than other districts have. So we are fortunate in that.
Jess?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the heat issue. I know that's in here under the district focus area, heat-related closure. Due to the fact that we are not able to use fans during this time, we may need to call early dismissals or perhaps close school if the temperature is excessive.
Yep.
On these days, classes will continue via the distance learning format. Do we have any more information than that? Like, have we thought about which schools, like obviously some schools have AC, some
Sure.
don't. How hot is too hot? How do you gauge that?
Right.
And obviously, if you decide the night before to close the school tomorrow, everybody can just move on to distance learning the next day.
That's
If you
right.
decide to do early dismissal, you lose instruction for the rest of the day because kids have to go home. Teachers would have to go home. You can't do distance learning for the rest of that day. So
Right.
I was wondering what
Sure.
other details
Sure.
we have in that area.
Yeah. And as you're saying it, I'm thinking about snow days. When we get snow at 9, 10 o'clock, then we have to call an early dismissal. That becomes problematic, right? But we know when it's going to be hot. So it does allow for that flexibility. So if we know, I'm talking to the Department of Public Health, I'm talking to our local meteorologist, I'm, making all those decisions in concert with them. We want to make sure it is hot in this. It's hot wearing a mask. And on the third floor of our high school, on the third floor of Forbes, in our buses, which are also not air conditioned, I don't want to put our students at risk. So some of those days will be distance learning days, and we're going to move forward with that piece. I have to be honest, I have to be upfront, because I want to make sure that everybody's available for learning, because if you're so hot, then you're not even going to be available for learning.
Yeah, it's literally a health concern.
Correct.
It's significant.
Absolutely.
Gary, and then Nikki.
Sorry. So looking at the risk that children face, in Connecticut, for instance, we're at a really good place. But the children who have died, and there have been a few, but it is few, they've all been so far. I don't think anyone, I've tried to find out if anyone was from COVID, but they've been pre-existing conditions. are we working with, do the parents know the risk level of some of their children that have, what pre-existing conditions can create greater risk? And are we helping, are some parents who just don't know the risks? Do we have a pediatrician that we can use to advise so that the children with those real risks that can create significant issues, and it is 0.0004%, but it's still that one child who may have a pre-existing condition that nobody knows puts him at risk versus other children.
So we want to make sure that we are staying in our lane. I'm an educator.
Okay.
I'm not a
Okay.
doctor.
Right.
I'm not an
No, I know that.
epidemiologist. I have no knowledge of any of those things, nor would I want to be.
So they stuck to the
Hats off to those folks. So parents should be consulting with their physician and make sure that they are making a decision that is the best decision for their child and their family. I totally appreciate and respect healthcare providers and physicians, and I wouldn't even begin to entertain how we would ascertain that.
Yep.
So I give it up to them.
They should just check with their pediatrician.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Just, I have my own question, but just a follow up to Gary's. Don't we have like a district physician?
Sure.
Have we consulted? I just went
Yep.
through, he wasn't part of the reopening, but has he been a part
Yep.
of?
So as I said earlier, the nurses, and probably it didn't make sense because maybe not everybody knows, Dr. Curry, who's been in town, been many, probably even of your children, or you know the name, he's been our medical advisor. And so the nurses have been working with Dr. Curry. We will continue to do that. I know that Ms. Klimaszewski is meeting with Christina Douglas, who is our nurse supervisor, and Dr. Curry next week, so that they can just make sure that everybody's on the same page. They'll continue to meet. Christina's been really wonderful in terms of keeping the nurses informed and keeping the communication going, and then cycling back with John Barlow as well. She was on the original safety team that we had way back in March and April, really starting to discuss these issues. And that's going to be key. Our health professionals are really going to be key because that's what's driving this bus.
And the question that I had too was around, like, as a parent, I'm so concerned with what the day-to-day is going to look like, both in class and both distance learning, as I'm trying to weigh these two options. And I'm not sure I fully understand. I think what's been presented here has been amazing. And I think it's done with the state in mind. And I'm just, as a parent, I'm incredibly interested in what my kids' days are going to look like, and to help make this decision that, you know, you're looking for us to make in such a short period of time.
Sure. And I think it is difficult. I think our whole world has been turned upside down since March. And so at the elementary, the students are going to be, if you're in school, distance, and students are going to have to keep their items in, you know, it's art items or it's their supplies with their crayons and their scissors and things like that in their desks. That's why we are keeping them separate in terms of the cohorts. And then they will be going out in a structured way to bathrooms. We will be taking mass breaks when they go outside, when they have a time to be out and about, if you will. And I think, you know, in the fall, it's nice, and hopefully we won't get too much rain so that they can have those opportunities. And so we will structure it as much as possible. They will still have art and music and PE, which is wonderful, but that's going to be in a virtual way where the teacher is teaching the lesson virtually, you know, by a computer rather than physically being in the classroom. So I think they probably are the least impacted in a way. And I say that with, you know, knowing that every child and every staff member is impacted, but that's just the structure of the day. They will be eating in their classrooms. That will actually help in terms of having a parameter because they will be sitting at their desks, and it does keep that distancing. They will be taking their masks off at that time.
Yeah, and I think I got that from most of this.
Okay.
Part of my question is, when they're going into the in-school learning, are they going to be fully working on their Chromebooks? Is the same teacher that your classroom you're putting them in going to be the teacher that's teaching the distance learning piece? Are they going to have different?
No, if students are in class, then the teacher is in front of you, like if Gary's the teacher, so Gary's teaching the class, right? And so then it's in person, so they may be using their computer, but they used their computer before, they use their smartboard, it will be interactive. Ally's figured out a way to have it be interactive on their laptops, which has been really great, so that's a huge help as well.
So the students will be on their computer streaming from the teacher.
Correct.
That's what you're saying. So even the young grades where we've established they don't really have the skills, right? Why we made all those changes in scheduling. So
Correct.
a little bit concerned there. But then also with the distance learning piece, is that going to be separate teachers?
So at the elementary, yes, that will be separate teachers. And we'll have to see whether they're teachers who are in the building or they're at home. We don't know how many teachers will need a medical, accommodation. We're going to have to see.
Armin, then John, then Molly.
Well, I have a question, but since it was brought up, but I want to follow up with one question about the younger kids. I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine that the younger kids would probably be doing less on the Chromebook, but they will each have their own individual supplies at their desk to perform whatever task is necessary.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Is that what? Because I've been reading outside stuff about it, and that's one of the things that was coming down that, especially the younger kids who
Sure.
don't have the capabilities.
Right.
So I would imagine, and it would vary by grade in my school, right? Because some
Sure.
schools would operate a little differently, sometimes based on the structure of the building.
Right.
Things like that.
But that's different
So
than what you responded when I asked, because those are the things that haven't been provided to parents around those details to make a
Right,
decision.
but I think that Armand is separating out. So we were just talking,
Yeah.
Elementary. So he's breaking it down now, K1.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have a K1 student be on a computer the whole entire day. Okay, they may do some things that are interactive because they're learning some skills. And what we found out last year is a lot of our kids don't have keyboarding skills.
Right.
And we're also going to make sure that we have mice for our students because that makes it easier. Now, certainly developmentally, we're not going to put a computer in front of a kid and say, here, this is what you're doing, especially if we are sitting with a teacher in that classroom. So we will make sure that there are manipulatives or there are supplies so that students can keep learning, but they will be their supplies. They will keep their supplies, okay, to themselves.
But I would imagine we would have had to budget for that or somehow plan for
Right.
that much more material.
Mhm.
So much, so much.
So
is based on
remember that normally we do order supplies.
Yeah.
So now you shift
Yeah.
and you say, okay, maybe we're not ordering as much of this, and now we're ordering more of this. I mean, Ed's been really amazing in terms of just working with the budget and continuing to have these conversations with me in terms of what the needs are. Today, we met with the principals again to say, okay, what are the needs if we're going from this to this? What in this circumstance, in this scenario, okay, our new reality, what is it that we need the most?
Yeah.
Do you want it? Sure. Yeah.
So just, I'm putting my principal hat back on and my teacher hat, and I think Nikki, what you're grappling with is, so, you brought it up at our last meeting, actually. So if you've got a tub of math manipulatives, so pre-COVID, pre all this stuff that we're living with, the teacher might have said, okay, these 4 students are gonna go to the back table and you're gonna have this tub. We can't do that anymore. So now a lot of this, we already own the materials, but it's like pre-packaging them so that we can provide each student at the beginning of the year with his or her own set of things to keep in their own desks, right? So yes, we have to buy things, but not everything. Does that help? I mean, I don't know. And, you know, there won't be circle time on the rug, and, you know, the kids will really spend an awful lot of time in their own little station rather than coming together as a group. You know?
It's just trying to visualize and understand as a parent between the two choices that we have to make.
Sure.
And it's, you know, school's not like the school we were in last year. So without some of those details, and you can tell from a lot of the comments that we heard from, whether it's parents or staff, all their questions are rooted in the details of not knowing or understanding how it's going to work. And I think, you know, I know you guys have a huge undertaking, and I'm not trying to make it out to be a small task at all, but the details is where the decision's going to be made from.
Sure, and that's why we have that email link, because we won't have thought of everything. I can tell you that right now up front. So as people ask us, then we will share those details. So, or we can clarify it, because maybe it's something we haven't thought of at all. And so then we've got to go find an answer and figure it out. So yes, we want people to email and ask their questions so that they can make an informed decision.
Armin, did you have a question?
Yeah.
John and Molly are still
Yeah,
waiting for their questions.
I did have a question about the, what was the estimate, the 2.7 million document sent to the Board of Finance?
Yes.
It was sent already, okay. Or is it gonna be sent after we approve
This, yes, well, after tonight.
Okay.
No, actually it was.
It was
in our
sent
packet.
when you got
Thank you.
all your stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
So the Board of
Same
Finance
packet,
has that
yes.
also.
Yep, that was last week. Seems like years ago. Thank you.
John.
It was Friday.
Just a comment, we can't possibly anticipate, we can't possibly define every bit of the minutia that parents right now are having run through their minds about this. That's why we have teachers. Sue and Sue can't do it. None of us around this table can do it. The teachers are the ones who will be dealing with those decisions, making those decisions, and within the first 2 or 3 days of them talking to each other in the teacher's room, these things will not be problems. They will figure it out if we let them. In the meantime, we can't let ourselves get too excited about how that's going to happen. We just have to trust our teachers. If we don't trust our teachers, that's a problem, but it's a separate problem. I think we can trust our teachers. I think we can trust our administrators. I'm not worried about that part. The minutia will go away. It will not be our problem.
So are they calling
Hold on, let's just, because everyone wants to speak. Molly, you've been waiting patiently. Thank you. So Molly?
So my question's more on the curriculum piece and at the high school level in particular. So say you've got a freshman taking freshman algebra and you've got an in-person class and then distance learning. Are they going to be on the same pace curriculum wise?
Yep.
So, you know, distance learning, I know just from my own kids, it was very difficult for them to stay at the same pace they were in school. They probably didn't get as much education as they did in class. So are we working towards making sure that, you know, they're same level all the way through, whether you're home and there? And what about AP courses? How is that going to work? And those are fairly small classes, I believe, right? And if you've got, you know, a couple AP students at home and then a couple in school, so we're going to have 2 different teachers teaching the same AP course?
No, I'm gonna let's start with the curriculum one. Do you want to go ahead first on the 9th grader?
Sure. So one of the things that we're working on and our teachers are going to receive professional development on at the start of the school year is really looking closely at the priority standards. And this is happening across the state and across the country because Common Core standards, as you know, are just huge, right? So now we've worked with our RESC Alliance to really drill down and look at and prioritize. What are those priority standards? So that helps with that whole notion of like coverage. It's not going to be so much about, oh my God, how are we going to do it all in this kind of a blended environment, but still ensure that our kids really get what they need. So that's happening, like as we speak. The other thing that we started to work on the curriculum, continued curriculum work all last year, we never stopped with that. So even during the closure, that stuff continued virtually. And I think we're still in a pretty good place with that. We've been able to identify some more current materials that are going to help us to really get to the point that I was just describing. So, and the other thing is we were able to really perfect at the elementary level, actually, during the closure, that whole notion of a common assured learning experience for our kids. So basically what that means is if, every second grader in Torrington had the same instructional experience, the same teaching and learning experience, because our teachers worked hard to collaborate together to make sure that that happened. So we're replicating that at the high school too. So that becomes essential because of what you pointed out, right? If we have 15 kids at home and 15 kids in the class, we want to make sure that they're having a consistent experience. So it's definitely something very, very aware of and hard to make sure to guarantee for all our kids.
Because I think that's a concern with parents. I know for me, myself, is my child, if I decide my child's going to stay home, are they going to get the same exact education as they would in school?
We're going to provide it. Obviously the conditions are different and we don't have control over that. But the things we do have control over, such as the instructional delivery and the consistency of that viable guaranteed curricular experience, yes.
Hold on.
And I just wanted to finish answering Molly's question. And I think going back to John's comment, the teachers will adjust and will talk with one another also, because they're going to continue to collaborate. And so they can work on those work on those problems, and then we can solve it as we go.
The less we help them, the better off they are.
That's
And we are.
Well, we have very competent staff, and so I really do think that they will rise to the challenge and be able to address those issues. And as far as the AP classes, they really range in terms of size. And so we're working on the high school schedule, and they're really paying attention to what they need to do and how they need to do that. Because some of the AP teachers may be teaching in person, and then they're also teaching that remote learning piece as well. We just have to kind of see how it breaks out. And at this point, we really don't know, but we're tracking. Robin Lid versus Andrew Marchand have been working on those numbers for the last few weeks intently. So
I'm sure it's just one of the many questions.
sure, absolutely.
Ellen, Kathy, and Ed, I apologize. Do any of you guys have a question
There's still.
before we go back to the table?
Kathy lost her internet.
No, I'm all set.
Okay, all set. Ellen, are you all set?
I'm trying to unmute. Yes, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy had to leave.
Yeah, she's on vacation. Because she thought she was going to have a service issue.
Oh.
Okay, Gary?
I have a question from the public, but also to piggyback off of what John said. Parents have to make a decision whether or not
Yes.
they have to assess the risk. The risk for a child coming back to school is near zero, but it's not zero. So they have to decide. You have to rely on the teachers, obviously, to allow the classroom to conform to what we're required to do, but it's never going to be perfect. Yet at the same time, in my opinion, sending kids home and learning from home won't give them the education. And there's statistics that will tell you it's less safe being at home than it is being at school, especially if it's unattended by a parent. So parents have to decide what they feel most comfortable with. I do know from all my grandchildren and their parents that the biggest fear is masks, not the fear, but the social and psychological impact. But that's not something I can address, nor should I. But parents have to make a decision and allow our administrators and our teachers to do, the ones that want to go back, to do their job, because their job, in my opinion, our priority is the students, and we need to give them the best education we can and protect them as best we can. And, back in '68, they gave you, I said this before, an alcohol swab for your pencils. And, you were told, if your parents can take you to school, don't take the bus. And thousands of children, I think it was over 1,000 kids had died from that, maybe more. Parents have to decide, what are they most comfortable with? And like John said, we're never going to figure out what works and what doesn't work 100%. It's just impossible, because tomorrow will bring something different. But I do have somebody in the audience asked the question.
We can't do that.
Oh,
Sorry. I'm getting complaints about that. Text to me because
okay.
other members of the public don't have the opportunity.
Well, all right.
So we're,
There will be other public
Right, we're
forum
gonna have
times
other
when
public
people, and
forums.
we really, really encourage families to ask the questions, on the email.
But to further on my mask issue, though, how will we deal with that? I know, and we've talked about that today. There's a question about what we'll do with kids with masks, and what we can't do. what's the plan for dealing with that?
I think that's on the agenda.
That's on the agenda.
So
Oh, all right, well,
it's a
thank
good
you.
segue.
That's why I approved the agenda.
Nikki's next.
Just to address John, I think, to think that parents don't deserve details and insight into the decisions they're making is incredibly frustrating.
We don't
I
have
100% trust in the teachers, but you're asking me to make a decision and all the parents before we even step foot into the point is we're not choosing between school as we know it. We're choosing between all of these changes that are being made that really haven't been super spelled out for us, but you're asking us to make that decision. My daughter had made it through because of the connection she had with her teacher last year. So there is nothing more important than the teacher connection. And from what we're hearing, it's 6 feet. They can't touch them. You're gonna tell, you know what I mean? There's a lot of rules that are not being spelled out. I mean, you're teaching them about cozy corners, yet now every personal item has been removed. Books have been removed. It's just all I'm asking, and I'm not asking for the specifics like that. I'm asking, what's it gonna look like when my kid goes into school on the first day of school? What's it gonna look like? What's the school gonna look like? What's the room gonna look like? What if he needs a mask break? What happens?
Well, but you know those things because we've been shown what the classroom's gonna look like, for instance, and parents can make their decision based on it. I would say if those are important, right now, that makes the decision to keep it stay at home.
Right, because
You're asking us to it's hard because really there's no good decision. You're choosing between
Sure.
hard
absolutely.
and harder.
Yep.
It's the best of the
We
worst.
totally, totally agree.
I'm just trying to understand and make an informed decision.
Sure.
And I want to know what that day is going to look like. If I choose to keep them home, if I choose to send them, if I choose to keep them home, are our kids going to be on Zoom from the start time to the end time? Like, I don't know those things to be able to say, will that even work for us?
Okay, but let me clarify again. If your child is K1, 2, you're going to have in-person instruction and a little bit on the computer. If you're doing remote learning, K5, K12, you're doing remote learning. That's it, okay? If you're in grades, 2 and 3, you're going to use the computer a little more, but you're still having the teacher in front of you, using the computer for interactive, right? So it's similar to a smart board that they would use because they can't get up and touch the smart board, touch the whiteboard in front of them. So those basic things, I think you go back to what we presented tonight and you go back to the plan and then really make your decision based on that. The classroom is going to be stark. The teacher is not going to be touching the student. It is going to be very different. When you look at some of that K1, interaction that normally happens in circle time and on the rug, yes, it's heartbreaking. It is, because developmentally, those are all the things that you want to do with children. That's why we love teaching and being with them and interacting with them. And this is sterile and this is remote. But I feel like all of us have had to live that since March in our personal lives, in our professional lives. And this is an outgrowth of that once again. Like Gary said, maybe at some point the governor will change his mind on the different details. But right now, on this day, on the 22nd, this is what we are required to do. By July 24th, we must hand this in based on those requirements.
And it's clear that this satisfies that need for the state. It absolutely does. Looking at the districts, you are 100% in line with what a number of the communities are providing. My question, what I guess I'm trying to get at is, distance learning was a Band-Aid that was put on whatever the date was, right? Mark, thank you, right? That was a Band-Aid that was put on. And so we're being told it's going to be different in the fall.
It is.
What's that different?
So what's different is it's going to be the teacher teaching the student on the computer. The student's going to be on the computer and they are learning together. You will have to, if it's at home, you'll have to do whatever supplies or whatever you have at home for the manipulatives. We're going to try and make it as simple as possible for families. And maybe at some point we get to the point where people drive up and we drop some manipulatives in their trunk for them to use at home, just like we did other supplies. But you have to know that that's a different type of experience.
The same schedule though?
Because same schedule,
Not the
exactly
same
the same
teacher, though.
schedule,
Well, I was gonna get
not
to
the
this.
same teacher.
Right.
But it's more on a computer based, right? Because that's what's happening. Even if the teacher is just talking to the student on the computer and then you're using the manipulatives that you have at home or that we've supplied in the trunk of your car and had you drive back home and say, okay, I'm using this. I don't,
Armin,
sorry.
Okay. I just want to say that our job is to approve guidelines. The details will come after this. The guidelines are just completed maybe last Friday or Monday you completed them.
Right, so
Your
we
draft,
did,
right?
we did, correct.
So from here, it goes then to the individual levels and the individual buildings
Correct,
for the detail,
yes,
okay? That's not done yet because the guidelines are just finished.
correct.
So I don't see how the details can be done and given out to people when the guidelines are just finished. So I think that we just talk about the guidelines, which is what we need to do. Details will come later. I have my full faith in the administrators and the teachers to get it done. And I know they will.
Yep.
All right, and we have those extra PD days. Things are gonna work out, well, I think. So
Yep.
that's what I think we need to do tonight. Is look at the guidelines. We're within what the state wants us to do. I think they're great. I think we need to move on.
I also think, and then I'll go Jess and John, I mean, another big component of this is what each school looks like is going to depend largely on how many kids are in session and how many distance learn. So as example, just say for Torrington, if 70% of the kids distance learn, what that in school looks like is going to be very different than if 70% show up in school. And some of the things are going to be exactly, you know, the distance, all that, but what you're able or not able to do in a building is going to be a lot dependent on how many kids are coming.
Yeah,
into
the
building.
teachers.
But you want
And
that
the teacher.
accurate information, and I'm just saying, it's hard to make that decision on these guidelines when you can't even weigh the options. Right now, I mean, I think you talk to a ton of parents, everybody's confused. Everybody's like sending them to school doesn't
I think that
feel right.
depends on who you're talking to,
Maybe
because
you
there's a
have a
lot of
different
parents and
circle than I
staff
do.
that understand it. It's a hard decision, and no matter what, it's a difficult decision for everybody, because you're basically taking a risk. But you have to decide what's best for your family, and if you have a medically fragile child, I do. I would not be letting the school district make that decision whether my child should be coming into school or not. It's going to be her team of doctors who is aware of all of her situation and can make an educated guess to me of what risk it is to my child. And I don't think that, you know, for that piece, we should be interfering with that, because we shouldn't be saying it's safe or not safe for you to send your child, because we don't have all the information.
And I think the medical piece, the ones that have high risk children, is probably an easier decision, because like you said, you're not even thinking about in school. If you have students that
Well, no, I'm
really-
not saying that. I'm saying that I'm not relying on the school
No,
to
but you're
tell me.
feeling
I'm
pretty
relying on the medical team to tell me
Correct.
if it's safe for my
But
child.
it feels like an easier decision. If you have a student that didn't learn well at distance learning, right? But yet, special
Ellen.
education, I have to send them to school
Hold on, Ellen.
Point of order.
for what?
The discussion is the plan. The discussion is not, should I send my child or not send my child? That's an individual question that has nothing to do with the board. The board is this plan. Do we go ahead with this plan? Or do we approve this plan to go forward? But your hat right now is a Board of Ed member. It's not as a parent. Yes, you are a parent also, but right now, this issue is this plan. It's not, should I send my child to school or not send my child to school? That's the parent hat. And that's a different avenue to address, not now when we're addressing this. That's just my 2 cents.
Problem, we need to be wearing our parent hat more, because those are the people that we're
Jess,
serving.
okay, Jess, we could just keep going in
That's not
order.
true.
Jess,
We're servicing the
Yeah.
students.
okay, hold on, point of order,
Students.
point of
Parents
order,
making the
please,
decision.
point of order. Jess, go ahead, Jess has been patiently waiting, so go ahead, Jess.
No, I wanted to say, yeah, I do think there's value in the point of order, but there's also value in us. The community, I hope the community understands that most of us are parents or have been, are parents of older kids, but a lot of us do have families that are personally impacted by this. And we don't necessarily know the answers to these questions either. And we wish we did, but we don't. And nobody does. I mean, everybody's kind of figuring this out all at the same time. And we're going to do our best. The administration's going to do their best. We hear you. We can't give you answers we don't have yet. And so I hope that we can be collaborative and not attacking and not questioning people of why this person's wearing a mask when they talk, or how come, you know, I don't know, I saw something on Facebook that said, you know, how come the Board of Education has their meetings on Zoom and yet they're expecting our children to go into the schools? Well, our board had to stop having its meeting in person because of the governor's executive order for the size of the meetings. Most of us would have continued to meet in person if we could. Now our members have a choice between coming in person or meeting remotely. Same choice the students will have. We're on the same team with everybody in our community. All right. So that's all I have for him.
Thank you.
And to expand on, we're board members. Our job is to do what we think is best for the students, not necessarily the parents, whether the parents like it or not. It's what's best for the students. And it may conflict with parents' schedules, it may conflict with their concerns. But I think the governor, and I can't say that I've believed in all of these things, but they've taken into consideration what is the best science. I believe they've gone a little too far, but what is the best science and what's best for our children? And if the science says the risk is 0 at certain ages and the flu is 7 times greater, what are we supposed to do as a board other than say, we agree to send them back unless we get a spike, or we just don't send them back when the flu comes back? I mean, to me, it's not even a question at this
I don't even think
point.
that's a decision of the board. It's going to be a
It's
decision
not.
from the state.
That's
So I don't
exactly,
think we should
that's
even
my
be
point.
Discussing that right now.
That's my point. We need to take what the governor gave us and act on that, and then see what happens as we go down the road. It's going to change. We don't even know what teachers are going to be in the classroom. Some teachers may, whatever 3rd grade teacher there is at Torrington, may say, I'm not going back. We need somebody else for that school. We don't know what's going to happen. And that teacher might build her classroom different than another teacher around the parameters that are established. I mean, I hope further details come along, and they will as the teachers get involved, but that is not our role tonight. As board members, we need to decide, in my opinion, what we're going to decide to go with, and then allow the rest of the teachers to start planning, whether it be at home or for Zoom classes, because that's going to take time for them to put their plans together once you find out, in my opinion, who the teachers are, and to plan their schedule and their curriculum, and then move forward week by week, day by day. But we need to pass a plan and then hope that the details follow. But
But we're not even voting on this plan.
No, we're not required to
Right.
vote
I
on it. This is
understand,
really
but we're adopting it.
informational.
correct.
But
But we have to.
But we're going to continue to have questions,
Correct.
especially those of us
Exactly.
who are on the board who are parents, probably have more
sure.
questions. I mean, we're all parents, but with students in school, we're all going to have questions coming up.
Sure.
And I think that's why we're going to have the information section on the website.
Right.
Every day there's going to be new questions.
Absolutely.
But right now we just have to work on moving this forward, and then trust our administration and our teachers to address the questions that we're going to have going forward into school year.
John,
We didn't get into the details about exactly what happens this minute in the classroom a year ago today. We didn't have to. It's not our job any more than it's our job this year to worry about that. We look at these guidelines. I think we all agree that they are a pretty good idea, representation of what the governor wants us to do. And I would commend the people who put it together. Sue, I guess, in particular. But that job has been done. And as far as what it looks like under this plan, with all these restrictions, it doesn't look a lot different from the school I went to in the 1950s. But we've started holding people's hands, we've started doing things differently, and we think that's better. Although the highest SAT performance, highest year, was the year I took the SATs. Not that I know. But no, really, what we were doing then worked.
Correct.
What we're doing now may or may not be working.
For lots of
It's
reasons.
going so many ways. Yeah, I'll stop talking.
anyone else? Questions specific to, I mean, really, brought this one because we wanted the people in the community to get a look at what we're submitting. We, not meaning me, but the administration and the teams that have been working on this in the schools. But more if there was something egregious in this that someone felt, you know, they didn't want that in and it wasn't required to be in it. But the majority of the stuff is required. And I don't want the perception, people are saying like, fight the state. It's not an issue of fighting the state. If we don't follow the guidelines, we can't reopen. So we don't get credit for the days, our kids' education is delayed more. So if people are very concerned about the plan, I would strongly encourage people to reach out at a state level with their concerns, because that is appropriate for who might be able to change some of these things prior to the start of school. But, you know, the mayor pointed out, I have asked if she had any questions, that, you know, this is a fluid document, and that's what everyone also needs to understand. This is as of today. In 2 days, they can come down and say, this is changing, we need to do this. And, you know, we're just trying to keep in front of it all, keep the horse in front of the carriage and moving with everything that we're required to do. Because at the end of the day, we don't want a lost generation of kids. We want the ability to educate them in whatever capacity we're allowed to educate them. So, you know, unfortunately, a year ago, none of us would have thought we'd be looking around the room, looking at everybody in this way.
With masks on?
But we are.
Yeah.
But we're weebles. We'll keep following up and fighting this so that we can make sure kids get an education. That's what we need to make sure happens. Jeff.
Yeah, just, I was gonna say the same thing you said about having, you know, people reach out to the state. I mean, our administrators only have so many hours in a day. We only have so many hours in a day. We will interact with the state in the ways that are appropriate for us to do so. But you guys as private citizens have other avenues that it's not appropriate for us to utilize. Please utilize those avenues. Also keep in mind that for every person who's irate that kids have to wear a mask, there's another person who's irate that anybody doesn't wear a mask.
Right.
So your opinion is not necessarily the opinion of your neighbor. That being said, I'm sure we can find common ground. We don't have the luxury of having our own opinions on a lot of these things. Our opinion has to be the state's opinion on most of these things. But you guys out in the community, please use your voices and contact the state and do whatever you feel you need to do.
I just want to thank all of the people on the task forces, the district task force and the site task forces. The site task forces, as Armand was saying, will continue to go on and to work out those details and continue to flesh that out. But this will be the core document that they work from. And then they'll continue to add that information. And as we have updates, I will continue to bring those forward to the board. And those will also be posted on the website as well. So people will continue to be informed. But it really will help to have those email questions so that that will guide what we do, particularly at the site, so that we are addressing people's concerns and needs. I know this is a really, really difficult time. It's very emotional and these are tough decisions. So my heart does go out to families and parents.
Just to clarify before we go to Nikki, so those question and answers, will they work like the last time?
Yes.
Where they'll stay up there so people can look and your question may already have been answered through that?
Yeah, very
So-
similar to what we did for the redistricting. I think that was helpful.
Right. So it'd be a good idea, I think, for parents to go on there frequently, because there might be things that you're not thinking of too, that other parents have inquired about. So it's a good resource tool.
Well, and
Nikki.
I think we heard from the community today, the ones that spoke and wrote in, that they are looking for the details. Those are the questions that they have. So hopefully I know you write down notes.
I always take notes.
feverishly.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna
So-
stop because she's using.
That's right. He's cutting me off.
So hopefully, that those details and that the community represented are relevant. And
Sure.
I think they are very relevant to this discussion. What's presented is a great plan for the state. Is it a great plan for what's gonna actually happen? I don't know, because I don't really know what it is. And I think it's unfortunate that we think parents and the community don't deserve the details until we're ready to provide them. But you're gonna send the parent survey tomorrow?
Yes, the parent survey is going out tomorrow. Yep. And like I said, the email will be there, so as parents have their concerns, they can express them.
I don't think we, sorry, but I don't think we said the parents don't deserve the details.
No.
They have the details.
They're working them out.
So I think that's unfair, and I don't think that should,
Right.
that's just
Right.
not accurate.
And
Just clarification.
And I do, that's why I really do want to acknowledge the district and the site teams. They worked very hard to present this in this time. I mean, it was a very, very limited time that we had to do this turnaround. And really, folks worked tirelessly to pull this together. So I do want to honor and respect all the hard work that went into this. And I do think that folks who were a part of that process took it very seriously and felt we're really thinking about students and parents when they were working on this. Obviously, we had the state requirements, but also those other pieces, and they take it to heart. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been there.
I just also want to add one point, because I think sometimes this gets a little bit lost too, but so as information can be shared, it will. But some things that people are looking for, we won't be able to share. And part of the reason for that is security and safety of our kids. Like some people are wanting to know, what door are these kids going in?
Right.
We can't put that out publicly. The only people that are entitled to know that are parents that have children in that building that will be impacted by what door the bus is going in and out of, what door walkers are going in and out of. So there is some information that if you go to that school, you're eventually going to get it. But if your kids go to another school, you're never going to get that information. And I do think there's that piece of it too, that it's not going to be the same for every building because there's a lot of factors. So it's not like this is what it's going to look like every first grade, because the site is going to make a difference. The people going to school versus not going is going to make a difference. The faculty is going to make a difference. There's a lot of things that are going to impact this. But information will keep flowing. The sites are still meeting, and they're kind of working it out. So what I look at this plan as, if I'm a parent, just we're talking about it, what's non-negotiable for me? So if masks, some parents know right off the bat, I am not sending my child to school in a mask. Well, you know right now that that's a factor. That social distancing is a factor. Your kids are going to eat in the classroom, factor. It's not going to be business as normal. And you have to look at your child and say, can my child live under those things? Because for the in-school instruction, the educational piece is going to look like it did before, except that there's going to be all these things. They're going to be with the same group of kids. They're not going to be moving around the building. And each kid is going to be different, whether you think your child can do or not do that. But as information comes available that can be shared, it will be shared. And I'm sure that the board will be hearing more things from the site level committees of concerns or things, that how are they going to implement it? And the administration's going to have to figure that out because it's going to look different in every building. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, I think for distance learning, for me, what I'm hearing is unlike how it was in the emergency distance learning, you're going to be required to be on distance learning from the time school starts to the time school ends. That's very different than what it was last year. So as a parent, it won't be that 3 hours at night you can work on the distance learning. So if you don't have the availability during the day, then that's probably not the right option for you. So I think it gives enough guidelines for parents to understand the non-negotiables and the requirements on a broad scale basis. But everything else is going to fall once people start making decisions. So it's tough. It's not ideal. I get it. I totally feel the same, but I think it's what we can give for now, unfortunately. But go ahead, Nikki, sorry.
No.
Any other questions, comments? Ellen, did you have a comment? All right, any other discussion on the school reopening plan that will be sent to the state Friday? already. Nope. Okay, next up, mask policy 2011. So, as we talked about, as things develop and there's things that we can kind of get in front of and put out there, we would like to. So everyone is very concerned, staff, parents, about how we're going to make kids wear masks in school and faculty, the medical exemptions, who's going to be responsible for being the mask police, for lack of a better word. So CABE drafted a policy that's pretty comprehensive that talks about, you know, the requirements for the masks, what's at risk, but it also clearly identifies what happens if you don't have a medical exemption and you refuse to wear your mask. And I think it's important for parents to understand the process for mask refusal in the absence of a doctor's note, and also faculty. So what this policy does is it basically says the teachers are not going to be fighting this mask battle because it's a public health issue. So if a child refuses to wear their mask, takes their mask off, they're going to be sent to an isolated room in the building because it is a health issue. So it will not be the COVID isolation room where kids go if they possibly have a symptom. It will be a separate isolation room where a phone call will be made to the parents to help explain the requirement for being in school, and that if they can't basically meet the requirement, is the way this is worded, then they would have to either distance learn or become compliant with the mask policy or get a doctor's note. So what a lot of districts are doing is, because it's a temporary policy, they're just adopting the CABE policy as a temporary policy because it kind of addresses everything. It's already been vetted by the Department of Public Health, the area health departments. So it's not a question of whether you can use this language or not. The Department of Public Health has already said, yes, you can use this language. Because again, if our focus is going to be on educating kids, we have to make clear the negotiables and non-negotiables. Our staff can't be dealing with this, and you have other people that are afraid if people don't have masks on. It's a condition of coming to school without a medical note. And so I'm open to opinion. I mean, I think if we want to alter the model policy, that we should probably have the attorneys take a look at whatever changes we want to make. Like I said, because it's temporary, the majority of people are just adopting this one, but we don't necessarily have to do that. I just think the sooner we can get something in writing for parents and staff to understand how this is going to work, the better it would be. John.
I think the immediacy of the situation would recommend that we adopt this policy the way it is, vetted as been through whatever layers are available to us. And then if it doesn't work, or if something better shows up, we have a policy committee. We have a procedure for modifying it, and that's actually not that hard for us to do.
Gary.
Did somebody else go first?
Oh, Ellen's up. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go. Ellen, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and there's nothing that would be particular to our district. This is like temporary for everyone. So and as John said, the urgency. So
Gary?
I see it being okay. I don't like it, to be honest, not my opinion, but I think it's excessive. But I don't know how we're going to be able to balance that out with kids whose parents may not be available during the day. I think there's going to be a lot of kids who pose a problem, in my opinion. Hopefully not. And I think it's going to be a difficult situation for the administrators that I don't think the teachers should have to deal with it. Otherwise, the kids won't learn in the classroom. But, you know, like say in the middle school, for instance, how big will the room be to prepare for that? You know, how many kids at the middle school? 15, I forget the number. 1,000. You know, that's only 3 to 4% will fill up 3 rooms. I just think it's going to be very difficult. It's good that it's temporary, but if it's hard and fast like that, then we start, and if we can't accommodate, we start allowing certain kids not to get away with it, but if their parents can't get out of work and pick the kids up, what do? Other parents will be home and can pick their kids up right away. I don't know how you're going to, it's going to be difficult. I know we have to do, I agree it probably has to be that way.
Well, so the problem is, so this is a public health issue.
I understand.
So they've
I
said
know.
that a lot of the decisions are not being made even by the Department of Education. It's
Right.
because it's a virus, it's the Department of Public Health.
Right.
So technically, if we allow kids who don't have a medical exemption to be in school with refusing to wear the mask, it could impact our ability to stay open. So it kind of is a big thing. I mean, and that's, I want to also try to get the politics of people, half the people don't want masks, half the people do, and we really don't want to bring that into the schools.
So I want the public to understand. That's my point. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to comply
We
with the
don't know
school.
that. We don't know that.
Yeah.
Well,
We have to test it out and see what's gonna happen. Just like John said, we put the policy in place and then we can make changes depending on what's needed after. You don't know that
And we don't
it's
know
not
they
gonna be
won't.
complied
In
with.
planning,
don't
you
know that.
plan for the worst, not for the best. So in planning, if half will comply, we know that we don't know. So when you're planning something, you don't plan for what you think you know, you plan for what you think you don't know, which is worst case. And I'm not saying we have to do it. I understand that. All I'm saying is parents, I think, should understand, and the public should understand that this may be something that it's temporary. We'll do the best we can with it. You'll adjust every day. But I don't expect that the middle school to be able to handle that with precision every day if it gets out of control. And I don't think they should expect us to be able to react in a day. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to pretend. I mean, the state's passing these things down like everything else they do. And many times what they pass down never can work. So I just don't want them to think that while we're going along with all these things, it may or may not work, and we don't know.
But I think part of that is, I think it's important for parents to understand when making their decision about their child.
That's what I'm getting at.
Because, you know, we have to, so as a board chair, if, I'm not going to pick on the middle school, but if any school is allowing kids in there without masks that don't have a medical exemption, it's a huge problem. So the kids can't be there. And it's not, it's black and white. There's no gray.
And the
And I want it to be
administrators
black and white.
understand that.
Correct.
So-
I want it to be here.
Hold on. Armin, Jess?
And just remember, this is a policy. There's procedures afterwards that are done at the building levels based on the age of students you have, and things like that. So remember, we're policy, we're not procedure. So let's just talk about the policy. Do we want to do it as is or not? Do we want to add to it? Do we want to, I mean, that's something that we can do.
Right.
But there's other things that are going to come after the policy is implemented. There's nothing in place until we implement the policy.
I mean, I think we are policy, but if you don't think about the ramifications of the policy you approve, then you're not really thinking through the policy you're approving. So I'm going to push back on you just a little bit with that one, but I understand what you're saying. My first thought when I see this is how in practicality is this going to work? So who is going to be the mask police? Because you do have a mask police. Because if it's the teacher, it's is it the administrator coming into the room? What happens if the student says, such student shall be sent to the schools as if this is just going to go down like that? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe the student doesn't want to go to the isolation. I mean, those are all of the other things that will have to be thought through. And it is true, they will be different at different levels. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's important that parents understand that if you don't think your child is going to be able to comply with this rule, there will actually be a physical consequence of some variety because of the public health element. And it's difficult because we have had other behavioral issues in the classroom that haven't been dealt with in this manner. This is being dealt with differently, I think, like you said, because of the virus. So it's not being treated the same as other discipline issues, but this is it's a behavioral behavior that would require a consequence. And so just I know that there's gonna be a lot that has to be thought about with that, how that's done, how big these rooms are, like you said. I mean, hopefully you don't need
Hopefully
big
you don't need
rooms. I mean,
half a room,
hopefully
but-
Right.
people, hopefully it won't be an issue, but we do have to acknowledge, I think, that there may be difficult scenarios that come up because of the policy that we vote in, and just that hopefully our administrators will have our support, our teachers will have our support. If you have school security guards that need to be employed, that all of those things will be thought through. So a teacher isn't the one left in the classroom making the decision, do I call this in or not? Well, what if they just took the mask down for a second? What about this? What are all these little things? You know, what if they apologize? Like, what if all these, you know what I'm saying? All those little things that will have to be thought through.
Right, so, and the board has a decision, so some boards are deciding this is all on administration, we're not doing any temporary policies. Other boards are saying things that are big and non-negotiable, we're not going to have every building making a decision that as a Board of Ed, we have to be compliant in following these rules, and we're gonna put a policy in place to make sure that everyone is compliant. It's really up to us. Here.
So can I ask the question, how does our administration
talked-
view this?
Right, so we talked with principals today and got some input, and they would appreciate there being a policy so that we have something that is in place, even if it is temporary. I know Sue contacted some as well, so.
Yeah, I do have, I know you said, I do have a couple of, I got some feedback, which would, you know, there's a little bit of ambiguity. So on the first page, under transportation, all the principals who provided feedback have asked that the students are required. They would like to say all students and adults are required.
Because that matches with what's in our plan.
And then there's just really minor little tweaks. Then on the third page, under mask breaks, that last paragraph, a recess period may be used as a break from wearing masks. We would like to end it right there rather than continue with when no more than one class is outside at a time, because our playgrounds are large enough for us to have more than one cohort out at a time. And this really would limit us to not be able to get all kids outside every day. So if we could just eliminate the when no more than one class is outside at a time, we can keep the social distancing requirements are maintained to ensure that, you know, we're not going to have 100 kids on the playground.
Can you just speak up, Sue, because they're having trouble hearing on the
sorry,
line?
I'm
Sorry.
Sorry. Do you want me to repeat that?
So go to mask breaks. A recess period may be used as a break from wearing a mask. Do you want to come over here?
Sure.
And that's the third paragraph under mask breaks.
Right, we'd like to omit the following few words. When no more than one class is outside at a time. So we'd like it to read, a recess period may be used as a break from wearing masks when
And.
social distancing requirements are maintained to the greatest degree possible. That just gives us a little bit more flexibility. And then the last piece of, the last suggestion is right under the violations of the policy. It's a little bit ambiguous here in that it reads as though we're going to send the child who's not compliant to the sick room, right? To the isolation room. So the suggestion is that instead of such students shall be sent to the school's isolation room, maybe such student shall be isolated from their class while a parent guardian is contacted to rectify the situation.
I think it sounds better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those changes necessarily change health standards.
I agree.
Yeah, they don't really change the context. It's just,
Right.
I think as a parent, that last one, if I read it as a parent, I'd be like, no,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's gonna get the virus.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, then send your kid to school in a mask.
Is there another word that could be used to describe that room versus isolation room? Is there a clarifying word? Because my only concern with, this is very clear that the student will be removed from the classroom and will be placed somewhere else
Yeah.
while they await the parent's arrival.
Okay.
If you just say that the student will be isolated, they might be brought out to the hall. They might be brought into the corner of the room. And so then people may think it's ambiguous as far as, well, why was my child put in this other room? You know, why weren't they, you know what I mean? Like, I just wonder if the concern is that people think that this is a sick room.
So
Is there a different
such
word?
students shall be removed from the classroom?
Well, you could say to the school's designated area.
Yeah, I think that, because you want to also make sure that the other students
Yeah.
are
Right,
safe.
to an area the school has designated for this purpose.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. So that it's, I mean, so it's clear that the child will be removed, but not just in place.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was really it. I mean, apart from those three things, everybody thought that this would serve us well for now.
And they were very appreciative because we are concerned.
Yeah, nobody wants to spend all day doing
Right.
this.
No,
Right.
no. And it's not fair for the teachers to have to be the ones to
Right.
make that call either, because
Right.
that's tough.
Because it really is a health issue.
Right.
Okay, and the first one being the most important, just not that the other ones aren't, but if we keep it as just student passengers, that's really against what All-Star has said, what's in our plan, and even what is required of us as far as the state plan. So if we could change those pieces, that would be great.
Anyone have any objections to changing any of that? Ellen? It was one of the questions, the better question got answered, but she's on the public line, so we were trying to figure out, but now she's all set, the question was answered.
Oh.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the policy that's before us tonight with the recommended changes, or was there anything else people, I don't mean to call you people, board members would like to see?
Do we need to qualify that the face covering, like, what if somebody wears a ski mask? Like, do we need to qualify that they cannot cover the eyes and the forehead? Like, in all seriousness, I know it sounds ridiculous, but
I think we might be able to do that in protocols and procedures at the sites.
Also, they show you in the plan
What they look like.
The definition does kind of cover that. If you look at the definitions, I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but it says that the face covering is only over the nose and mouth. So, I mean,
it doesn't say, that's the problem. It says covers the nose and mouth. It doesn't say it can't cover other things.
So the hard
So you could put
balancing
only,
Yeah.
act is that you don't want it to appear that you're going to deny a child a right to a education. So you can't make it so specific
Narrow,
as how they explained it, but we're going to have masks available. So I think that should help, that if it's inappropriate, like I think it would probably be fine to say not a ski mask.
yeah, and maybe
Or
a
article
ski
of
mask doesn't
clothing.
cover your mouth actually technically, but just something that doesn't obscure their identity entirely. You have to be able to know who this child is.
Yeah.
They make those things on your neck, but I have people that work for me that pull it up to here, then they pull it up, parts of it, they have two on, they wear two, and they pull the back over. You can't see anything but their eyes, you know? So there was an article too about people that are wearing double layers and you don't know who they are.
Right.
I think that
That's
wording,
the
we would
issue.
have to have someone look at though, just to make sure.
Right.
I mean, if that can be handled in procedures, that's fine. As long as it's
Okay.
clear that they can't
Right.
wear something that obscures their identity.
Well, we're gonna give them all the same masks.
Well,
Well, we but they can also bring it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I think we do need to clarify that in procedures and protocols, and we'll get that out to the families as well so that they understand what the parameters are.
Because I think you're getting, and I also think without having some sort of max, you're getting a security issue,
It is.
which as it is, you can't tell who's who.
But we can clarify that in our orientation videos
Right.
as well, so we can show this is what you can't wear, this is what
Right.
you could wear, so.
Is there any way we can word it something like that in the policy, something about the mask, not infringing on security protocols or something like that? That they cannot, so it's a broad enough statement, it's not specific, it's broad enough to say that it doesn't infringe upon keeping the, the security of the building, something to that effect.
As well as
I don't know if we can put that in there, maybe that'll cover it, and then the definition could be more refined at the building level.
You're also going to have kids that maybe have masks with, crazy messages that you might want to limit as well. Because they're selling masks with everything on it these
Oh,
days.
yeah.
I think we have a policy for that, right?
Not for masks.
Clothing.
Not for masks.
Yeah,
No, not for masks, but
Yeah.
for, yeah,
for
Right.
what
dress
you wear to
code
school,
and-
dress
yep.
code, yeah.
I mean, and I do think maybe we could refer it to building procedure though, because every school is gonna be different, right? Like the restrictions on
Right.
kindergarten is gonna be very different than the high school,
yeah,
you know?
We hope put that kindergarten in that.
Right.
little kitties on
So
your
could we
mask.
refer to the specific site?
Right,
So per your school's procedures.
yep,
Who is that?
Could we?
that's
Yeah.
Ellen.
So like we have the employee handbook and I'm just thinking, so like in the retirement world, when we make a change, we have a summary of material modifications. Could we do that to the handbook for each of the sites? Where it just addresses these kind of temporary things that doesn't change the handbook?
Right,
Oh, like a temporary handbook?
Like an amendment so that we
Amendment.
don't have to redo that, the whole thing, but it's just an amendment for the 2020-21 school year. The mayor's also recommending that maybe we could say the CDC recommended mask requirements.
yep. And those are cited in the plan, but we could definitely, like in our orientation, if we really clarify all of that, we can refer back, show pictures, get it in writing, all those combinations, so people really understand.
Because the other kind of concern about him making it too detailed in this policy is we have no idea what they're going to come up with.
Right,
So we might want to be able to alter, like, I don't want to pick on the high school, but that age group,
sure,
we may want them to have some flexibility if kids start showing up with something very bizarre that we would not have thought of.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that will help the CDC guidelines.
Recommended.
Yep. or if we put recommended CDC guidelines and site level policies,
Site level procedure.
procedures. Would everybody be comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, any other items of interest, concern? No? Everybody good? Ellen?
Yep.
Ed, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, action items. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve mass policy 2011 with the changes discussed.
So moved, Ellen.
Second, Armin.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Aye.
Comments for the good of the order. Ed, I'm going to start with you because you're on the phone and I can't see your face.
Yeah, just really quickly want to say that I'm pretty happy with how the reopening plan has ended up. I'm not enthused that we have to reopen the schools, really, but I think that the administration has done a really good job working within a pretty limited framework. So thank you, everyone over there who worked on it.
Thank you. Ellen?
I would echo that, and it's a lot of work went into this. It's a lot of detail.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jess?
Yeah, just thank you again to the administration and to the team that worked on this. And I'm optimistic that we as a community can work together to find the best options through all of these things, and that we can respect each other's decisions, and that we can all kind of figure this out at the same time.
I concur. I just hope the parents and the public understand that the administrators and the teachers, and I know some teachers agree with going back and some don't, and Ed doesn't necessarily agree with the opening, and I do, and we all have our differing opinions, but that you'll do the best you can. And given the circumstances, I think the children can be as safe as they can possibly be. And I know the teachers and the administrators will do the best they can. So, thank you.
Molly?
Same as everybody else. Thank you for all the work that went into this.
Thank you.
John?
Again, I'm just going to echo what everyone said. You all presented too, very easy to read.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Armin?
Yeah, thank you to the committee for putting together this plan based on the little information you were given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the hard work, and I know I ask a lot of questions, and
it's all good.
it's because I am a parent. Why I joined this board was to be a parent here, and so I appreciate you answering the questions, and I know we don't always agree on the level of detail or what's to come, but know it's all coming from a good place.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone. This is a very emotional time for everyone. I know that the central administration, me and a lot of the board members have lost a lot of sleep worrying about this. It's a lot of responsibility. And I think we're all just trying to work together to do what's best and most safe for our students and our staff, given the guidelines. But really, if parents have questions, have concerns, reach out to your schools, reach out to administration, get in touch. They know your children too, and may be helpful in helping you make those decisions. But please reach out, and we'll try to keep the communication going as best as we can. And as we have information, we will pass it on. And I think everyone's doing the best that they can, including parents and everyone else. It's unprecedented times, and we'll get through this. And we will move on, and we will be better for it. So thank you, everyone, that got on tonight. And please keep your questions coming, because it's very helpful to everyone to see different perspectives. So we will encouraging that. Reach out at any time. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Ellen.
Goodbye, Ellen.
She's on mute. She doesn't know she's on mute.
You're muted, Ellen.
Sorry. John was first.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.